Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Hello, and welcome to the Chicken Box, powered by Afro News. Some of you may know us as Afro American Newspapers. We are the oldest Black owned business in Maryland and one of the oldest African American media outlets in the country. We are so glad that you're with us on today. I'm Frances Tony Draper, CEO of Afro News, CEO and publisher. And our co-hosts usually for the Chicken Box are Kevin Peck and, well, he goes by Impeccable, and Jay, but they're not here today. But I'm glad that you're here and that you are watching. And I'm also really thrilled to have with us today co-hosting this exciting, I'm gonna call it episode, Lenore, I'm gonna call it episode of Chicken Box, rooted here, growing together, the significance of Johns Hopkins and other anchor institutions to Baltimore. Say that 3 times, okay? But I'm glad to have Lenora Housey, our executive advertising director, here with us this afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you are and when you're watching. Lenora, hi.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Thank you for joining us on today. I am so excited about today's conversation, not just because it's with a person that I admire greatly, a person who I call my friend, but a person who is truly, when we talk about community activists and people who live and breathe community, our guest today is that person. And so before I go on any further, Lenora, would you introduce her and then we'll bring her on I started to say on stage, but on camera.
Certainly, I'm honored to. In addition to Alicia Wilson being a great friend and supporter of the Afros, she has a very prolific set of experiences, and I'm just going to touch on a few of them so everyone will know of her accomplishments. So she is currently, Alicia Wilson Esquire is the Vice President for Civic Engagement and Opportunity at Johns Hopkins University. In this role, Alicia leads and coordinates a broad range of strategic initiatives aimed at fostering community partnerships, economic growth, and civic engagement in Baltimore and beyond. And we are firsthand recipients and partners of that the role that Alicia has at Hopkins. Prior to assuming this role, Alicia served as managing director and head of regional philanthropy for the North American region at J.P. Morgan Chase. And I think there's a whole lot more I can say. We'll talk with Alicia in a moment, but I think what I'd like to end it with is something that, again, we've had the benefit to experience, and that is Alicia's leadership, her expertise, and her unwavering commitment to civic engagement and economic empowerment continue to shape Baltimore and beyond, and solidifies her reputation as a transformative leader in both the private and public sectors. Will you welcome Alicia Wilson?
Well, thank you.
Hi, welcome. We're so glad to have you. We're here to talk about the impact of Johns Hopkins University, or Johns Hopkins, the whole system. It's not just a university, and other anchor institutions in Baltimore, to Baltimore, around Baltimore, because they're not just Baltimore, they have impact everywhere. I'm going to ask you a question, though, Alicia, that I know inquiring minds want to know. How do you do everything that you do?
First of all, let me just say thank you. It is always an honor to be in the company of great women, and two that I admire and respect so much are you, Tony, and you, Lenore. So just thank you for having me on today. How do I do everything I do? I think prayer, prayer, and more prayer, and rest. And honestly, I've been very blessed over the journey of my life that I've never had to do it alone. And so the fact that I've been able to be in community, in partnership, in sisterhood, in fellowship with like-minded people who care deeply about the place that gave birth to us and the space that we occupy energizes me. And so I think that's a blessing of being able to do more than what you would imagine an individual do. It is just a reflection of grace.
I was getting ready to use that word. You are a reflection of grace because you make it look easy, and you do it in a beautiful fashion. One thing that I like to ask about you, Alicia, in addition to how you do it all, if I had read your entire bio, that would have taken us through the entire episode. Because you've done so much, and I know there's probably more than one experience or one moment that really stands out to you in your career over these years. But is there one that in particular really like stays with you as I'm so glad that I got an opportunity to experience that?
I would have to, I mean, I'd probably take it back to the beginning. I was an associate and then a partner at Gordon Feinblatt, which is a law firm here in Baltimore, which has a huge impact. And what that law firm taught me was that you can do well and you can do good, that you can bring in business, build a portfolio, have an expertise and a practice, and right in tandem with that, do good. Figure out ways that you can use your legal skills to benefit the community, not always for pay, for pro bono, for the good of the community, and to take on leadership. And so that firm supported me in becoming the president of the Alliance of Black Women Attorneys, supported me in taking leadership in the bar associations and in civic organizations, but also mentored me in being excellent at the practice of law. And so I think that provided me with just a sort of table stakes that the weaving of service and business and enterprise aren't at odds, but can be woven in together to really benefit this community. And so I really credit that professional employment with really setting the groundwork for who I am today.
Wonderful.
Wow, that's great.
Thank you so much. In case you're just joining us, this is a chicken box, yes, not a misspelling. Chicken box with two X's. Our theme is "Don't be a chicken, get on the box." And so we're welcoming our guest, Alicia Wilson, and we asked her a couple of things just to level set the conversation about her own career and trajectory. But we are here to talk about her role and the role of the institution that she serves in the community. And you know what? And we said in other anchor institutions. So there are a lot of anchor institutions in this Baltimore area. And I know that there are those who are watching. You're from around the country. This is the Chicken Box is broadcast around the country. But I believe that there are anchor institutions in a lot of major cities. I'm a little partial to Baltimore, a little partial to Baltimore. And so we want to give a shout out to those who have stayed in our major cities and have actually been the economic engines for our cities, like the venerable Johns Hopkins System University Medical Center and the whole 9 yards. Now, I said that very, very glibly, but let's put some dollars and cents around it, Alicia. When we talk about Hopkins' impact, help us understand a little bit about the economic impact of Johns Hopkins, not just for Baltimore, not just for Maryland, but probably worldwide, because people may not know that there are campuses all over the world.
Yeah, no, I love this question because when you sit in Baltimore and you sit in a city, you get to interact with a entity like Johns Hopkins. And when you go outside of the city or you go around the world, you then get to appreciate how much of a global impact that the institution has. And you feel, I think, even more grateful that it also cares deeply about the place that has been its home, that has given birth to it, where we are in neighbor in partnership. If you just think about the numbers in the state of the impact of Johns Hopkins, $40 billion a year in economic impact in the state. 149,000 jobs, the largest private employer in the state. Um, just thinking about, in the city, 1 in 4 households, somebody works at Hopkins.
Wow.
Is just a 1 in 5 city jobs is Hopkins. Just thinking about what that means in terms of the significance of Hopkins as an institution to those who, one, work in the institution, but the businesses that do business with Hopkins, the growth of Hopkins, the buildings that it creates, and how you think about that being an engine for this economy. It really is mind blowing to think that an institution that started, um, you know, 100 over 100 years ago is now celebrating our sesquicentennial has had such an impact in this state.
Wow, yeah, that's a mouthful, sesquicentennial, but it's the 100. This year marks the 150th
Yes.
anniversary of the founding of the Johns Hopkins University, and
Mhm.
yes, that is called not a centennial, but a
So,
sesquicentennial. Say that fast, so try to spell that backwards, right?
yes, yes, yes.
Lenore, go ahead and jump in. You have a question for
Well,
Alicia?
first of all, I'm glad that Alicia said the word already. We have to say it again. From here on out, it'll be 150th
Yes,
anniversary.
yes, yes, yes.
Sesquicentennial, like I said, say that a few times quickly. But I think what strikes me most about the economic impact and the numbers that you just shared with us is how little people know that. Because as global of an institution as Hopkins is, and it is, it's globally known. I don't think you can go too far and talk to too many people without them at least knowing the name Johns Hopkins. But in terms of the economic impact, the number of jobs that it offers, or in the Baltimore region, why do you think that is so little known? And are there plans during the anniversary celebration, the 150th, to sort of tout those successes a little bit more?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think sometimes you just don't know. I think that as you continue to live life and you are engaged in everyday affairs, you may not just realize tangibly how vital our anchor institutions like Johns Hopkins, like the Afro, are to the vitality of the community. But if you are directly impacted, or you can see it. So there are so many small businesses that I know, they know the impact.
Mhm.
They have been able to grow alongside Johns Hopkins. I always think of like Taharka Brothers, who was one of the who we all love the ice cream of Taharka Brothers. But if you ask Sean, who founded it, he would tell you having the first big contract with Johns Hopkins was just gas in the tank that
Mm.
allowed for them to grow and now be employee owned by young people in this community. I mean, you think about like, business like Jeff Hargrave with Mahogany, who started out as a second tier, I think he was a second tier contractor. Now he's a general contractor on our DSAI building. So if
Mm.
you think about like that sort of growth alongside this institution as it grows, it takes an intentionality, but I think sometimes it's the best kept secret in our community, just how much Hopkins and how intentional it is about as we succeed, the community succeeds, and as the community succeeds, we succeed, and that symbiotic relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So do
yeah,
you, I'm sorry. I was going to say, do you think more those sort of stories, like the ones you mentioned, is that something that's going to be very intentionally included in some of the anniversary events and celebrations?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And as you know, this year we're celebrating our 10th anniversary of Hopkins Local, which is amazing to think 10 years ago we sort of put a flag in the ground around buying locally, hiring locally, and contracting locally. And now we get to see that bear fruit. those sort of stories will be out there. And honestly, utilizing people who want to talk about positive news, like the Afro. The Afro always, I think, when it has the chance to uplift our community, it always takes that chance and always does that. And so, working in partnership with those who want to tell those great stories about how great Baltimore is, how great our institutions are, whether they be Hopkins or smaller, and how that really is indicative of the growth of this and progress of Baltimore. I think is we are hoping to be able to tell that story in repeatedly over the course of this year and beyond.
Wow. So one thing about the Chicken Box is it's not scripted. Okay.
No.
This is a live show. It is not scripted. So we did not pay Alicia Wilson to give a plug, but since she did, please go to afro.com. Come on. If Impeccable was on, he'd say for less than the cost of 2 Uber Eats. Now maybe it's for less than the cost of 1 Uber Eats, right?
Yes.
You get a subscription to afro.com. There are people who still love the print edition, and so you can do that as well if you want. And we're in the middle of a campaign, so if you contribute to the campaign, you even get a gift. I got a gift in the mail today. I don't know what's in it. I have to open it up to see. And so thank you, Alicia, for that shout out. But I want to go back to Hopkins Local in case there are people that really don't understand what Hopkins Local means. And I think other people have picked up on this local. It may be in the locale where people who are watching, where they're located, where there's an intentionality around supporting local businesses. So 10 years ago, that was birthed. Was that your idea? Was that your?
No, I would not take credit for that. I would say really our President Ron Daniels, his, less than 2 years after he started here, his real mission was for Baltimore to be improved by the way we do business, that it should be in our ethos, that it should be in our reflex, to purchase locally, to hire locally, to contract with local firms. And if we do that, every year you'll see businesses continue to thrive, grow, people in our community ultimately be able to send their young people to school, purchase homes, think about themselves as even anchors in their neighborhoods, in their community. And so that intentionality from the top permeated the entire institution. And if you look nationally at what happened around 10 years ago in the national landscape, and also in higher ed around this topic, Hopkins was really a trendsetter, like a first in on this concept of really setting goals, publicly reporting, holding itself accountable, and continuing to ratchet it up over time and reporting that to the public. Because many institutions would tell you we spent $1 million. Well, what was that? What was the baseline? And how is that a goal? And how are you progressing? So I think that was really, breakthrough at its time. And many of my colleagues and peers across the country will always say, we look to Hopkins Local, we look to what Hopkins did around this, just setting a goal and holding itself accountable, and having the humility to do so, because you don't know if everyone's going to comply, because spin doesn't happen all the way at the top. It happens at different parts in the institution. And so having construction say, do we have local firms on this project, and are those local firms growing alongside us? I think that is, even with every part of the spend from the buying of a chicken box, a literal chicken box, to purchasing of different firms, for a number of design firms, for all different purposes, down to ice cream. If you can buy it local, we will. And what that really did for us in so many ways is it gave us a competitive advantage in being able to see those grow alongside us. People bring their families here, know that it's a great place to start a business and that you'll thrive. because we care deeply about education, innovation, economic growth, and development.
Okay, so is there a Hopkins local database that's maintained? Can people also not apply, but can they? How do people get on Hopkins radar if they're not already?
Yeah, we have a vendor guide that you definitely can apply to as a vendor. If you're a construction company, they're on our Build Wealth website. You can put yourself in there. Put all of your qualifications, and then we have actually a committee that meets with the firm, sits down with them, learns, talks to them about their qualifications, what can they do, and then introduces them to our general contractors as a firm that we believe is capable. Can they have consideration as you're buying out a project or the like? And so what effect it has had is that you see, businesses that probably wouldn't have been on our radar, get on our radar because now we know, like Mount Royal soap, we know you make soap. And so when COVID happens, we know you can make sanitizer. And now you not only are our vendor in COVID, but you now are a huge vendor for us over the course of our enterprise and over the course of how we do business.
Love it.
Alicia, I remember when Hopkins Local was rolled out 10 years ago. I was at the Afro, and it was like one of the biggest things that was happening at that time. We did a lot of coverage about the rollout and then of the different businesses that benefited. But I also remember, because there was food, so I'm going to remember.
We do food well. We do food well.
There were these wonderful receptions where we got to meet some of the people of the business that were involved in Hopkins Local programs, and to hear their success stories and to hear how they benefited from being a part of it. Are you all still doing those?
We're gearing up for a big celebration this year around our 10th anniversary, and being able to do that. And we just celebrated that 10th anniversary, but we will continue to celebrate just what we've been doing and how we've been able to impact. But you want the food? I get it. We'll have another reception. We had a little celebration last year for 10 years, but we're gonna have another one coming up. We'll have to have another one, and you'll be on the invite list.
Okay. That sounds like a good time is about to happen. Alicia, and I don't want to assume that our viewers and listeners actually know all of, and you might not know them all either, and I'm sure people can look them up. But when people say Johns Hopkins, from an insider's viewpoint, it's probably a little different than from what folk who've not seen. What does that entail? And who in the heck was John? I know a lot of people say John Hopkins. I know it's Johns, but who was Johns Hopkins? And say a little bit more about the expansiveness of. You gave us the numbers, and that's a huge economic impact in not just this area, but around the world. But if we had to describe some of the signature things that Hopkins has done, is doing, and maybe even will do as they are building new things all the time.
Johns Hopkins was a significant businessman of his time. Really, if you look at who he was in company with, and who he was in community with at that time, it's people whose names you probably hear all the time: Enoch Pratt, George Peabody. These were men who had done well in business, whether it be the B&O Railroad, whether it be some other economic engine, and chose to make these transformational gifts. Johns Hopkins gave the most transformational gift of his time, the largest philanthropic gift in history, when he gave it, to establish a research university in Baltimore. And that was I would say, really a moment in time that then has created the culture of Hopkins and how it positions itself not only as a Baltimore leader, but as a world leader in the areas of the arts, medicine, science, innovation, education, public health, nursing, data science, government. just how it is positioned in that way. When I grew up in East Baltimore, I always thought of Johns Hopkins as a hospital because
Hmm.
that was I never even saw the university. I never crossed Charles Street much as a child, so I would always see it as the hospital, whether it was what the old city hospital, which then became Bayview, or the hospital down on Orleans Street. But once you get inside, it is like the most magnificent place. It is my. I've worked many places. I've had wonderful, wonderful, wonderful jobs over the course of my journey. It is the culture in Hopkins is something you can't really appreciate unless you're on the inside. Um, the selflessness, the care, the pursuit of excellence without ego. It's just such a humble place. I could go and ask the head of radiology oncology to talk with a woman in my neighborhood, and they would pick up the phone and call her. I could ask someone at Peabody, would they perform for kids in it is just the most humble place that is doing such transformational work. I remember having a friend who who had a family member out of state, and the doctors in that hospital said, um, "Do you think you could get someone from Hopkins to talk to us?" And she called me and she said, "I know this is like far fetched, but would someone at Hopkins talk to us?" The head of the department of the condition that she had called down to the physicians there and counseled them. It is just like a beautiful place that cares deeply about this community, and you can feel it in so many ways. Um, it is both a healthcare system, it is both a educational system, it is also an economic driver, a place of innovation. It really is a special place in this community.
Thank
Wow.
you. And so, like so many institutions of higher learning, however, that do all that Hopkins does, this has been a particularly trying time for research institutions as it relates to funding and academic freedom and all of those things that people value. And so I don't want the conversation, I don't want to leave the conversation, not that we're leaving yet, we've got plenty of time, but I don't want to leave the conversation
Sure.
without talking a little bit about that and how Hopkins has responded to, I mean, at one time it seems like every time you know, went on social media or pick up the Afro or your other media, there was some institution, Hopkins not being exempt, that was under fire and with threats of funding being withdrawn. So, can you talk to us a little bit about that from the Hopkins perspective?
Yeah, I would definitely say that there's been a significant impact from cuts at the federal government, whether that be um, in NIH or National Institute of Health, National Institute of Health, National Science Foundation. Just cuts across the board. I think there are a couple of things that are in the ethos of Hopkins that are helpful to us. One, I think we have amazing leadership that has done is done a significant job to make sure that people get to continue to do the work uninterrupted. Um, Whether that be clinical trials or continuing to make sure research in cancer continues, or in other areas, that we just continue to stay focused on the work. I would also say that, as we think about how we are able to contribute, the fact of the matter is, like, we may be able to do less, but our commitment stays the same, right? And so we do think brighter days are ahead. I think that we have been great in being able to really educate the public. Lenore, you talked about, like, how do people know, or what don't people know? You know, our campaign around research saves lives,
Yeah.
and being able to tangibly demonstrate that. The glove that the doctor puts on their hand when they come into your in the operating room or comes in to see you, that was created at Hopkins. like so many like medical advances that we take for granted, things that stop infectious disease. Like you have to tell those stories.
Yeah.
The fact of like, you know, cancer research, the fact that we have now made so much progress in the area of sickle cell, because how we have been able to make so many advancements in making sure that mothers and fathers who have children who are preemies are able to have even a dream that that child will be able to have a full and wonderful life. Like that's research behind that. I think that our institution has really just tried to make sure that from from government to the average individual to our legislators understand how important it is that we have research institutions. And so we have been championing that, making sure that message gets out to all of levels of government, um, and making sure that people understand that it is important. The compact that the United States had with research institutions coming out of World War II it was an important compact,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and has allowed for the United States to advance and have prestige in the world, and we don't want to lose that.
So along those lines, and thank you for sharing that, because you said things again that did not know. But with all of the 150th anniversary events that are being planned, um, will they be open to the community to have this sort of dialogue and to tell these stories, and will they also focus on future plans that Hopkins has for its
Yeah.
investment in the community?
Yeah, so many of our events over the course of our sesquicentennial 150, they will be open to the public. Lectures, whether they be lectures, whether they be exhibits on the things like I talked about, like the glove, understanding like all the advancements that were done by men and women, um,
I
um,
didn't know that.
and um, and being able to see that in living color, what happened here in Baltimore, the history of this institution, and also some of the people who were here, like Vivian Thomas, we have Dr. Watkins. We have just like so many um, figures in our history that are significant to Hopkins, are
Mhm.
significant to Baltimore, but are significant to the world. And so we're going to be highlighting that over the course of this year and beyond.
That's great. So I had the privilege of, in full disclosure, of serving on the Sesquicentennial Committee as a community member, and a lot of work and thought went into, how to celebrate, when to celebrate, who to celebrate. And
Yes.
there is a website. If I'm going to ask our producer to put the URL, to put that up on the screen, but it's simple. It's just 150. I think it's .jhu.edu.
Yes.
150.edu, and that
Yes.
way the community can plug in, if you will, to all kinds of events. And so, Asia, if you're still with us and can put that on the screen so people can know where to plug in. I want to go back to something you said of you laid out all of this stuff that Hopkins does, especially around the research, right?
Yes.
I mean, I had no idea that that's where the glove was
Yeah.
invented, was because of research. But I know Hopkins does a lot of research, and clinical trials. You use that term. Uh, in a lot of cases, um, people of African descent are underrepresented in clinical trials. And there have been lots of studies even about why people don't want to be a part of it. And I don't know if this is getting a little bit outside of what, of your area, but Hopkins inside and out. Um, Not why do you think that is, but what's the benefit of us, of people of color, maybe specific participating in clinical trials?
Yeah.
How does,
Um,
how does that help our community?
Yeah. So what it helps, clinical trial is to, test out a methodology or drug, and see how it impacts different people. How does it impact the woman? How does it impact the man? How does it impact a person of certain ethnicity or certain things in their background? And there are changes that are made to the composition, to the methodology based on what is seen in its impact on an individual. The impact is huge. The reason why we should be in clinical trials can be borne out. And I'll give you an example. I feel like I have the best medical team in the world that works with me. And my physician focuses on women's health. And many times she will say, Alicia, this is a drug that could treat that condition that you're presenting. But let me tell you what the clinical trials are saying about how it impacts Black women. And so then that allows me as a individual to have a more informed decision about, do I want to take on that risk as it's showing up, or how a condition is impacting Black women, or does that even, they're ruling things out because that doesn't happen to Black women, but I could be an aberration. It just is, when you are wanting to receive care, wanting to receive treatment, and the advancements, they have to know how does it impact a wide variation of people. And it's so critically important. And I see it up close and personal when you think about when people need cancer treatment. Um, when you think about breast cancer, bladder cancer, some things where, we there may be some variation based on the population. Really want to make sure that we are a part of the set um, that is ultimately um, deciding what happens with that drug and what advice does a physician have for you. But I think I am such a believer in what I think is God's gift of science to us, and discovery and innovation. And we are very fortunate if we can be a part of that and making advancements.
So, Alicia, uh, with all that you just said about the importance, and we agree, of our participation, people of color participation in clinical trials, how in telling Hopkins' story as it will be rolled out over the next year, celebrating the anniversary, how will the complex relationship that Hopkins has had with the African American community be addressed, to make people feel more comfortable, perhaps, with clinical trials, or more a part of the Hopkins community? Because I think there's still a segment of our population in Baltimore who are skeptical at best about medical trials, clinical trials, and about Hopkins. So what's the plan to talk about that as you roll out this 150th campaign?
Yeah, and I mean, there'll be many points to talk about, things such as Henrietta Lacks. I think just like, and things like it in our history, and just being honest about that. I think there also will be a lot of discussion around what things have been done over the course of the past 150 years that really have allowed for us to not be perfect, but have progress,
Mhm.
and in the area of health, for a wide variety of population. And so I just think telling the story of the past, not shying away from it, being honest about it, and then showing progress around care and care delivery, I think is really important and will be a part of what we talk about.
I love it. I love that, the transparency, openness, and honesty. And I'm going to say to our listeners who are listening and watching too, if you all hear the dinging in the background, that's my computer that I can't figure out how to make it not ding.
I thought it was hand claps for me. I thought it was dings for like. You could have said that. You could.
That's the beauty of a live show. We want everything to be perfect, right? It's dinging on the phone and it's dinging on the computer. Throw it away into the trash can. But I think the transparency, and also, um, not just how the story is told, but who tells the story
Mm-hmm.
and who repeats what we repeat. It's just like social media today. People repeat things without even checking to see
Yeah.
what the real story was or is, and some of the things that Hopkins has done. And like you said, you own certain things, right?
Yeah.
You correct what you can correct, and you try to move forward.
Yes.
Yeah. So, if not, all of us would be held hostage to everything we've ever done in life.
Yes, yes,
And
absolutely.
that would be pretty devastating. I don't know about y'all, but it would be pretty
Oh my
devastating.
goodness. Yes, yes. But I agree. I think, just, talking about it, not shying away or, from it, and the transparency will make people feel, yes, we've made some progress, just in the relationship with Hopkins and the African American community. Now, what about the students, the campus? How involved are they going to be in these sesquicentennial? See, I said it, sesquicentennial.
See, it's contagious. Once I say it, you start saying it. You start, yeah, it's great. Students are extremely engaged. We have, I think, the lifeblood and the heartbeat of this institution are its students, and just the how they get to come to this institution and be a part of the discovery, innovation, and growth. They will be. There's so many lectures, events that happen across our institution that draw them in, and also highlight some of the great things that have come out of this, that have come from students.
Mhm.
I think about a little bit about the startups that came out of Hopkins, like what businesses are in our community as a result of that, or in the world. I mean, in 2024, if you just look at our history, over 130 startups have come out of Hopkins, and about $4.4 billion in venture funds are here. That's a part of a 150-year history.
Wow.
The how you come here as an 18-year-old and you leave as an inventor, as an innovator. It's amazing to me. And so I love seeing like how our social innovation lab, our innovation hub, our techs, and so students are woven into this in so many different ways.
Oh, good.
That's good. So go in as an 18-year-old and come out as an inventor. I,
Yes.
I missed the window.
No, no, no. No. Yeah.
But,
You're an alum. You're an alum, so it doesn't have to. Yeah, you're an alum of Hopkins, so you can. Yeah, you just
yeah,
keep going.
that's true. Full
Yes,
transparency. I am an alum of,
yes.
of Hopkins on the graduate school level, and so we're almost going to wrap up. And what we do in the last couple of minutes of the chicken box is we just get on the box. You'll get on last, Alicia, and you can say anything that you'd like to say. It can relate to this conversation. It can be on another topic um, that we haven't touched on. You know, so just kind of think about what you would like to say about that. Lenore, I'm going to ask you to go first. We're not ready yet, but we're going to get on the box. I just want to say this before we get on the box. I want to thank Alicia Wilson for being with us on today. We'll probably thank you again at the end. I want to certainly thank those who have been watching and commenting. Thank you. We've got some faithful chicken box viewers, Alicia, who
Ah,
who are on like every week, and people don't always watch us at the hour that we go live, but they watch us, later. So we appreciate all of that, and we should do better, Lenore. I don't know what anniversary of Chicken Box this is. This may be 4 or 5 years, but I can't think about. I
Yeah.
can't remember what it is right now. But I would want to also shout out our co-hosts Jay Jackson and Impeccable, who would usually be with us. And if Impeccable was here, he would say, "Call a senior. Don't text them. Don't send them an email. Call them. There it is. Show love to our older generation. Let them know that you care about them. That's what." And he would also say, just like we're going to say right now, "Y'all, what you waiting for? Get your Afro subscription." So I know I use an example about Uber Eats. I wasn't trying to give them a plug on it's all right with them. Let me put it's like $40. But go to afro.com. I think you'll be pleased with the coverage that we do of our community. And we'd love to do more. Now, I'm not on the box. I'm just telling you what Kevin and Jay would say about this in the show. Lenora, you are on the box.
I'm on the box.
Yeah,
on the
you want
box. I'm on the box. Well, first, I want to, of course, thank you, Alicia. Thank you for carving out time to be with us on the box today, and for the information you shared. I learned a lot even in these 45 minutes or so that I did not know about Hopkins. I think the other thing that is not lost on me and hopefully not lost on our audience is that, here sits on this screen 150 years with Hopkins. Afro will be celebrating 135 years next year. So these are two major iconic institutions that have had both national and global impact. And I think that if you're from Baltimore, as many of our viewers are, this is something this is a proud moment to be able to have these two institutions who have done so much for our city, for this region, and for the country represented here. So that's what I wanted to say for my time on the box. Thank you.
Oh, on the box for time. Okay, well, Alicia, I'm gonna jump on the box, and you can jump on the box. I too again want to thank you for joining us today on the Chicken Box. I learned a lot, and I am a Hopkins alum. I'm a Baltimore native, just like you are. And until I went to Hopkins, well, my mom went to Hopkins as well, but I really didn't know much about Johns Hopkins. But I think because of the way Hopkins is evolving and continues to evolve, especially under current leadership, there's always something new at Hopkins. I talk to people who work there every day, and they are discovering. Hopkins is a place of discovery, right? And so whether you're in public health or in music, or in, like I was in the School of Education, there's one Hopkins, right? There's one Hopkins with many, 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 many parts. But I love the fact that Hopkins is intentional about its outreach to community. It's not a flash in the pan, something happened, well, something may have, but something triggered it, right? And then when that something is gone, then Hopkins withdraws its support of community. I think that Hopkins has proven that it's into the community partnerships for the long haul, whether it's doing pro bono legal stuff, or just out in community, giving away things. Yeah, that's how some people perceive large institutions. But what I like about Hopkins is that you don't just give things to the community, you partner with community, and you help budding entrepreneurs, especially, or even mid-level entrepreneurs. You name some folks that have been in business for a while, but they needed that Hopkins contract, quite frankly, to go to the next level in their business. They always had the capability. What they needed was an opportunity.
Yeah.
They had the expertise. They needed somebody to say, you matter, and we're not going to just give you the little subcontract. We're going to make sure, because of who you are and what you do, we see you, and we're going to award you a prime contract and help you get the next one. That's the only way we really build up our community. So people can debate about the Hopkins. When I say the Hopkins, the Hopkins things that they may or may not like, whether it's the security, or whether it's the past that we want to rehash. But what they can't debate is the contribution that Hopkins continues to make, and it continues to evolve itself around those things that matter to not just Baltimore, because Hopkins has campuses outside of the city of Baltimore, but not just to Baltimore, not just to Maryland, but to the United States. When people list major institutions in the world, not just in the world, Johns Hopkins' name has to be in the top 5 of major institutions. And so thank you for your role. We didn't say this, but Alicia is back at Hopkins. We did introduce her. So she went and she left and did another very, very impactful body of work, as you heard in the introduction. And now, and she was at Hopkins before that. So it's something about Hopkins that's in your DNA as well, Alicia. And so thank you for what you do at Hopkins. And I want to give a shout out to Ron Daniels as well. He's about one of the most down to earth university presidents I have ever met. And leadership does matter. I am off of the box. I left you time, Alicia. You are on the box.
For the box. Oh, first of all, let me just say thank you to you, Dr. Draper, Tony, and Lenora, and the Afro. Um, it is a blessing to have an institution like um, the Afro in our community. 135 years, a business that has been successful but also significant. Um, and I say the same about Hopkins. It is an institution that is successful and significant. And success is a byproduct of hard work. Significance is a byproduct of intentionality, of mission, of vision, of setting goals and achieving them beyond self, but about something bigger. And in so many ways, the Afro and Hopkins and other institutions in our community that we are blessed to have are about that thing, about how do you create access? How do you create pathways? How do you create opportunity? And all of these institutions are not perfect, um, but they are about progress, and they are about good and utilizing its mission and its goals to benefit more than just self. And so for me, I'm grateful for every institution in this community that does that. And we at Hopkins, at Baltimore, in Baltimore, which is an old city in this country, have institutions that are 100 years old. Many places don't have institutions that have lasted that long. And so with that, for me, and I know I don't get paid by the Afro, but when you have institutions like Hopkins and the Afro, you protect them. You make sure that they last for another 150 years. You do everything in your power to support them. You buy subscriptions. You support your institution. You talk favorably about your institutions because it's not a given that you have them. And so I'm just grateful for the 135 years of the Afro, the 150 years of Hopkins, and I hope that those who come behind me will be able to talk about the 300th year of the Afro and the 300th year of Hopkins, because we took care of them now. We were stewards of them now and made sure that those institutions had what they needed to be able to outlast all of us. And so I'm just grateful to the Afro. I'm grateful to Hopkins. I'm grateful to be from Baltimore, in Baltimore, and for Baltimore. And thank you for this opportunity.
You are welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to our producer, Asia, who will help us to just bring all of this together as well. And to our viewers, thank you for watching, for listening. Thank you for your questions, for your comments, for your faithfulness. And know, as Alicia said, we're not perfect, but we are present
Yes.
and we are committed. And so I hope that you've learned, like we've learned, some new and exciting information about the Johns Hopkins, one of the institutions that anchors Baltimore, but the institution that employs more people than any other institution in the entire state of Maryland. That's something to be said about that.
Yes. Yes.
There's something to be said about that. So thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you and have a good day, everybody.
Bye.